My name is Rachel Rosner. I've lived in Brighton for almost 30 years.
Hold the mic closer.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Just shout it out and say something, please. I followed a boy and moved here and got married almost 30 years ago. I spent the first almost 20 years of my career working at the JCC with the children and families. I ran the summer camp, the child care center, day camp, and all that sort of thing. Then I moved on to a local nonprofit called Autism Up, and I have been their director of community education and supporting parents and families of kids with intellectual and developmental disabilities for the last 10 years. I've recently moved on to a new position from there. But I also wanted to mention that this building is my home. I have been a member of Temple B'rith Kodesh since I moved to Rochester. Reform Judaism is where I was literally born and bred. My husband and I were youth group advisors. I hope none of them are here in this room. They might be. Back in the old days, I served as a religious school teacher here, inclusion coordinator. I serve on the social action committee and was on the inclusion committee. My kids were educated here, confirmed here. So TBK really is home for me, so I'm really happy to be doing this here and thankful for the machloket for tonight. I actually never in a million years, you probably hear that a lot from candidates, thought that I would be sitting in a room where a candidate forum was taking place and that I would be the candidate. I am in no way, shape, or form a politician, but I am a public servant. I've been doing that my entire career, and this is just the next phase of what I hope will be my public service. When I was talking with my team about some of these kinds of forums and what are the kinds of things we might want to say, one of the quotes that was shared was, "A rising tide lifts all," is it ships or boats? Boats. It's boats. And so I started thinking about that and thinking that that was a really great metaphor for Brighton. We're in a really great financial situation. We have so many great amenities in our town, parks and sidewalks and great schools. There's a reason why people live here. But the more I thought about what a rising tide actually is, I think we have to pay attention a little bit to what a rising tide can do to boats that are not seaworthy. And I think that we need to pay very close attention to those folks whose boats might have holes, might run aground. Those are not the folks that you often think about when you think about the town of Brighton. And I think it's really important to center those voices. We need things like renovated town facilities so that they not only meet but exceed ADA requirements and that they're sustainable for decades to come. We need a new recreation or community center, as Chris put it the other day, I like that, that has more than just programs, that has services for the people who live in our town. We need to redo our zoning in Brighton. We need a more inclusive zoning process that helps our renters, our seniors, and the 9.4% of people who live under the poverty line in Brighton. We need more density, we need alternative dwelling units, and when I say we need affordable housing, I'm not talking about the $40,000 quote unquote affordable housing. We need housing to be affordable for anyone who wants to live here in Brighton. We need tenant protections. This fabulous real estate market that all the homeowners are experiencing is really bad for renters. Okay, I am for expanded public services. Things like expanded refuse districts, townwide composting, and for the possibility of publicly owned power. As a town council member, I promise to listen, to search for solutions, and to put our town's resources to work for all of us.
My Jewish values are why I chose a career in public service. By proudly displaying our Judaism, we can make the world a better place. Tikkun Olam. Brighton is my home. I'm a third-generation Brightonian, and my wife, Samantha, and I actually met the first day of high school. It only took me 10 years to get a first date. It was well worth the wait, though. After working on Democratic campaigns throughout the country, we moved home to Brighton. In my career, I've worked at the federal, state, and the local level. And whether it's walking the halls of the White House as an intern for the Obama administration, or serving as the chief of staff for my friend and mentor, Assemblymember Damon Meeks, I've learned from some inspiring public servants. And I'm excited to bring that experience to work here at home for you. I've spoken to hundreds of neighbors, and I know that accessibility is a top concern for many of our families. Better access to essential locations without requiring a car encourages community building, provides equity, and it benefits the environment. I see my friend Sue Hugh Smith out there that benefits the environment. When I first began my campaign, I spent several hours sitting with former town supervisor Sandy Frankel, who's here in the front row, at the Charborough. Where else? She told me about her campaign for town supervisor at a time when no woman had ever won the seat before in our town's history. Sandy would go door to door explaining her vision for our town to protect green spaces, to expand walking paths, to create more bike lanes. And as we know, Sandy was successful, and thanks to her visionary leadership, Brighton has dramatically expanded our green spaces and improved accessibility. I share Sandy's vision and her values, and I'm honored to have your endorsement. These goals don't mean much unless you can get the job done. So I've helped achieve policy outcomes for both New York State and in Monroe County, which are the two entities that we need to collaborate with in order to implement our vision here in Brighton. I have experience in local government and in education in public administration, and that's what we need to implement our vision. Over a 4-year term, I know that we can make a difference. We can make Brighton a better town for everyone. Samantha and I returned home because we wanted to start our family surrounded by Brighton values. This is a community that loves and values its diversity and each neighbor. When the Jewish community was attacked in Pittsburgh, the Muslim community came and prayed with us here in TBK. When the Muslim community was attacked in New Zealand, the Jewish community went and prayed with the Muslim community here in Brighton. We are so fortunate to have grown up here in Brighton, which cherishes these universal human values. And it is our goal to continue to make this community a great place to live for generations to come. I look forward to the discussion ahead. Now, are we making a statement on, or do you want to come back?
We'll come back.
Okay, thank you so much.
Guess it's my turn. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah? No?
Louder.
Louder?
Yeah,
That's
that's
good,
it.
right there? Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to address you today. My name is Jesus Solo, and I stand before you as a passionate advocate of building a sustainable, accessible, and equitable community. Having been raised in Brighton and shaped by the values instilled in me by my community, I am committed to taking the initiative and creating a change we need. From a young age, I learned the importance of being actively involved in our local government. Inspired by my mother's dedicated service in the Brighton Democratic Committee and her advocacy for Rochester City School District teachers, I have witnessed firsthand the power of engaged citizens. It is time for the younger generation to step up and contribute to shaping our community, and I'm ready for that, take that first step. I envision a Brighton that is not only diverse and affordable, but also safe and welcoming for all. A place where the voices of its residents are not only heard, but also followed. Where families can raise their children in a nurturing environment, and where our elderly population feels supported and secured in their homes. To achieve this vision, we must embrace the sustainability in all its forms. By balancing development with the protection of our natural environment, implementing sustainable design practices, and smart growth that prioritizes compact mixed-use development, we can create a thriving community that respects our natural heritage. However, sustainability is not limited to the environment alone. It also encompasses accessibility and equity. I am deeply committed to ensuring that our town becomes accessible to all, regardless of ability or disability. By enhancing our infrastructure, adopting universal design principles, and fostering inclusive mindsets, we can create a community that welcomes and accommodates every resident. Equity lies at the heart of our mission. We must strive for social justice and fair distribution of resources. By addressing disparities, promoting affordable housing initiatives, and engaging in open dialogue with all members of our community, we can build a town that champions fairness and equal opportunities for every resident. Together, let us take the first steps forward so that we can leap bounds in futures where all are cared for and the land flourishes with humanity. I firmly believe that as a whole, we can accomplish this. Thank you for your time and this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
I'm Chris Werner. Thank you, Rabbi Stein and Dr. Levy, and thank you, Temple B'rith Kodesh, for hosting this forum. TBK is such an important and vibrant institution in Rochester and Brighton, and I was so pleased to join in the celebration last Saturday night of your 175th anniversary and the celebration of my birthday. First time I ever had happy birthday sung to me in Hebrew. Thank you. Congratulations, it was a great night. And I saw my wife's picture over in the corridor there. Now bring your reading glasses, but there she is, confirmation class of 1967. We've been married 48 years. So what am I doing here? I have no political pretense, I have no political ambitions other than town board. And my 12 years on town board are just an extension of a lifetime of community service. My folks are my model. We are all challenged to serve beyond our day jobs, which for me, I'm a practicing attorney with the Boylan Code Office. Now, beyond that day job, I've served my colleagues in the Monroe County Bar Association, chairing the ethics, professional performance, and public education committees. I've been selected by my peers to serve on the board of trustees. My daughter has a seizure disorder, so I joined the Epilepsy Association at the Siegel Center and became board president. I coached girls soccer for 20 years and was president of the soccer club. And during 8 years on the Parks and Recreation Committee here in Brighton, we developed new parks where none existed, which I found our young families now take for granted. And frankly, that makes me smile. And Sandy Frankel suggested that I consider town board, where I've now served 12 years. On town board, I've led every aspect of town government: public works, finance, community service, and now public safety. I know what I'm doing, and I've been effective. So what have I done? What have we as a town board accomplished? Inclusion, diversity, and equity plan, climate smart community, community choice aggregation, expanding tax base, conservative budgets during times of high inflation, incentive zoning amenities that share in our developers' success, parks and trails where none existed, miles of new sidewalks, pedestrian and bicycle linkages, complete streets, open space, and my own initiative, safe storage of firearms, making Brighton one of the few communities in the state and the nation that has that simple, common sense ordinance. We We've found funding sources to minimize the tax impact of improvements through incentive zoning and private and government grants. We've helped form neighborhood districts to find cheaper, safer, and more efficient neighborhood services, all while maintaining exceptional community services that are unequaled in Monroe County, which after all is local government's primary job. And we've maintained an open and responsive government. So that's my platform. More of all of that, and more into the future, like implementing the Climate Action Plan, the IDEA Plan, Envision Brighton 2028 Comprehensive Plan, building a community center, renovating Town Hall, more and more sidewalks, trails, and linkages, affordable housing integrated into the community, in new development, updating the zoning code, and enhancing our communications with 21st century tools. This service has brought me the endorsements from the Brighton Democratic Committee, Supervisor Bill Maley, former Supervisor Sandy Frankel, the Rochester Labor Council, Congressman Joe Morelli, and many others. But more importantly, I look for your endorsement. I look for your vote. I'm excited about Brighton's future. I love being a part of it. And with your support, we'll achieve these goals together. And thank you so much for coming out and giving your time tonight.
A short answer so we can get to more questions. Thank you.
I'm going to save my neck here and hold it this time. So I got home today from work and saw the second of two mail pieces that I believe were highly inappropriate, offensive, has no place here in Brighton politics, and shocking, to be blunt. I quickly wrote this statement, and that I'd like to read to you guys today. I wrote, and I posted this statement on my social media platforms as well, Nate for Brighton. Over the past 24 hours or so, several pieces of mail attacking my opponent and purporting to advocate for my campaign have been distributed within the town of Brighton without my authorization or consent. I did not participate in the creation or distribution of these advertisements, and I do not support the divisive tone that they take. And frankly, I find them offensive, and they don't reflect Brighton's values. And I'm running for a town board in order to work collaboratively to get things done. And that's what I've accomplished throughout my career, the federal, state, and local levels, across the United States and in the Rochester area. That's what I can bring to Brighton, a broad experience and a practical approach that leads to tangible results. And it goes without saying that divisive, almost national rhetoric has no place in local Brighton politics. I should have read faster.
To Jesus now.
Well, as we all have seen and witnessed over the past couple of years with politics, a lot of things have not been done with respect and dignity towards other opponents, if it's passed by misinformation or sources that aren't credible. I feel like everything should be conducted respectfully and with dignity, and if we can continue to do that, that'd be great.
Thanks, folks. I thought to start my presentation with a statement, and here it is. I've received those campaign mailers, and I expect most of you have seen them as well. I was shocked by them. Ostensibly, they support Nate and I, but frankly, they are extremely offensive to me. Particularly because they have my name and my face on them, and that is extremely troubling. This is not what I want my supporters to hear. I knew nothing of these, nor the organization that sent them. I did not authorize them, and I abhor them, and I abhor their images and their tone. I do not understand why this group has seen fit to intrude into this local campaign. As you've heard and will hear tonight, this is not my message, nor for those of you who know me, this is not my style. Throw this trash where it belongs. I welcome Rachel and Jesus in this contest. And what to do? Campaign finance reform. We do not need this sort of improvement in our politics. Thanks.
Thank you. Rachel? Why don't you go ahead and just take it out
Sure.
of the thingy do?
I will.
Technical term, I'm sure.
So, it's been a really interesting couple of days at your mailboxes. I am going to call those mailers what they are. Yesterday's mailer was full of gaslighting and racism. Today's mailer was full of misogyny, right-wing tropes, and lies. And I'm not upset for me. I'm a big girl. I can take it. I actually laughed. Who I am upset for is you. This is not what the people of Brighton stand for, nor do I. I take both Chris and Nate at their words that they were not involved in this, but I do have a word of caution for you, and that is, think about the reasons, which we don't actually know, for why these people from New York City with real estate interests and millions of dollars are targeting a race in Brighton, New York. And the way that you can combat that is with your vote.
I think the role of the Brighton Town Justice is not simply to be a hammer to nail every nail it sees. The role of the Brighton Town Justice is to connect people in need with the resources in our community. One of the critical functions of the town judge is to employ something I call restorative justice. We cannot throw people away or house them in a Monroe County jail when they are in need of assistance. And one of the key features of knowing when to employ restorative justice versus traditional forms of justice, punitive justice, is experience. It is criminal law experience, particularly when you're dealing with criminal law cases. If you don't have that experience, you can't make the distinction between which individuals would benefit most from restorative justice and which individuals will be recalcitrant problems in our community. That is what you are electing when you elect the town judge, his judgment. Am I good on time?
Yeah,
Okay.
1 more minute.
I think the next thing you have to consider is what resources are available in our community. I think making people feel welcome in their courtroom, because it is their courtroom, is a key feature of being a Brighton Town judge. You know, one of the things that we can do, for example, and I have a number of new ideas I'd love to talk about, is to address the new people in our community, whether they be from Nepal or otherwise. I've met a number of refugees who are coming to our area. Making sure that the languages that are spoken in the court are most easily understood by the court, and that the people in our community can understand the court. So we have preformed instructions for people from various parts of the world so they can have instructions about where to get assistance. That's something we can do to make the court more just. I think addressing the diversity issues we have in our community is an important part of being the Brighton Town Justice. You know, I have to point out the obvious here. I am the only person of color here sitting at this table. And that is important to me for a number of reasons. I think if we want to...
5 seconds.
Thank you. I think if we want to make people feel comfortable in the justice system, they have to have confidence in the justice system. And having a person of color leading the justice system here in Brighton will instill confidence in people who otherwise may not have confidence in our system, especially given the recent reports that the Brighton Police Department has released.
Thank you. Yeah.
So it's difficult to describe a judicial philosophy probably in a minute and a half. But it, for me, in this position in town court, is really about the efficient process of cases, but more importantly, helping people that are in trauma. People who come into the court. I'm not talking about a speeding ticket. They can handle that, and I have some ideas that I would work with the DA's office on how to not even have those folks come to court. But it's knowing how to break the cycle of whatever trauma or addiction or abuse has led that individual to appear in that court. Also, at least as a town court justice, I think it's important to mentor. You have young district attorneys, you have young public defenders, and they need guidance. They need to know how to recognize and select the cases that have more to them than others. They need to know how to try a case. They need to know when to try a case. They need to know what's available under our penal law and our criminal procedure law.
10 seconds.
In short, you have to be a leader. I agree with that. You have to be open, and you really have to be there to help those who want the help and to give the appropriate consequence to those who don't.
Thank you.
Yes, I think my judicial philosophy is threefold. First, it depends a lot on how you're presented to the individuals appearing before you in court. Everybody appearing in court deserves to be treated with the dignity and the respect that they deserve. I think that Judge Karen Morris has done a fantastic job in her tenure of leading with compassion and with empathy, making sure that the process is not intimidating for those appearing in town court. Town court is an entry-level court, be it a criminal matter or a civil matter. Oftentimes, there is no right to counsel unless it's a misdemeanor or a higher offense. Even though it might be a lower level offense, and it might not sound like a big deal, it's a big deal to the people appearing in court. So therefore, the judge needs to show the demeanor and the empathy and the compassion to make sure that that person feels like they've had their day in court. The second is to make sure that the town judge is prepared.
I believe that since the town board and the school board are both different forms of government, and just like how we collaborate with the Monroe County and state, we should also collaborate with the school board, and specifically about making schools more accessible and also making it bringing more diversity to Brighton. So when we work together, we should always look to collaborate instead of ignoring each other. Like, I feel that I work at the high school personally, and there's a lot of things that could be improved at the high school, but also don't really get brought up in board meetings or anything like that. So if the town board and the school board will work together to create a better community in general, that would be perfect in my eyes.
Great, thank you.
We're integrated. Town government, school government, as it were, the school board, we're all part of the same community. And first of all, that's the primary reason I hear people come to Brighton in the first place. The second reason, diversity. But first, the schools are exceptional here, and I think the town is exceptional, and that reflects that. We've actually got 5 districts here in Brighton. I know the Henrietta School District engages the town board members in an annual meeting, which I appreciate very much. The others do not, but nonetheless, Brighton is our primary focus. We work together. They've been a very receptive landlord and very helpful to us over the years at the Brookside School, where our rec department is. Our soccer programs, at a time when the town had no parks at all, other than the so-called town park over on Westfall Road beyond South Clinton, which we rented for $1 from New York State. They let us use their playing fields, let us use the fields over at Brookside. Just last night, I was thrilled to honor the young women who came out to help me with my traffic control cabinet painting project. Now,
30 seconds.
is that a big deal? To me, it was. And so those Dalmatians at the fire hall and those other 3 boxes that are along Westfall, that was a joint project with myself, scrubbing down those boxes and priming them myself, and then watching those kids create artwork that gives me joy when I drive past, but I think those kids, every time they drive past, and are joyful that they made that contribution to town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Raise your hand if you can name 5 school districts that are certain. Oh, Bill and Sandy, nice. The school districts that, by and large, have a very nice collaborative relationship with the town government, as they should. I think it's very important, and that may be the question that was being asked, that it's acknowledged that they are completely and totally separate entities. The town government and town board has no influence over the school board and vice versa. But I think that the way that we need to work together is for the students and families that are in those schools, for the people who live in the town of Brighton. And however we can collaborate to give those folks the services and supports that they need, that's what we should be doing.
I love that you asked the school board question. So the first campaign that I ever managed was for the school board chair of Prince William County, Virginia, which I know is very glamorous. I'm sure everybody here has heard of that race, right? The 2015 Prince William County race. No Democrat had ever won the seat before. It was the first campaign. I was in charge of the entire staff, just me. And we ran and we won that race, and I was so proud. I'm bringing it up today because the first thing that Ryan did, our candidate did, was they had a don't ask, don't tell policy, believe it or not, in 2015, right? In Virginia, Prince William County, Virginia, that they repealed. Okay, so you could be a teacher, you could be out and proud and continue to teach in your classroom. Could you believe that that wasn't possible before? So I would collaborate like I've always done. I've had experience being in the room with folks, school board level, up to the federal level. I love working with folks. I'm on the phone all the time. What do you need? How can I help? You know, I'm a volunteer youth baseball coach at the Rochester Hispanic Youth Baseball League. Chris talks about coaching, so now I have to bring up my coaching. And you know what? The coordination goes from, can we use the field, to, hey, can we help get your kids some snacks before they come to baseball practice? Youth programs is my passion. I would very much look forward to working with the school board to serve the children and of course their parents of the town of Brighton. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Don't you necessarily need to have experience on the bench. But I agree with Vic in the sense that there should be diversity in the courtroom. I think right now, when you walk into Brighton Town Court, all the bailiffs who work there, I think they're all think, all white guys. I was there yesterday, day before. All the clerks are white. So I think I would try to change the staffing a little bit. I think I have to work with town board on that to some extent to maybe get funding, but I'm sure whoever's there would help me with that. And I think that creates sort of a more welcoming spirit. So that's how I would try to address the diversity within the court itself.
Thank you. Jason?
Yes, thank you. In 2020, the town constituted an Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Advisory Board. And through the hard work of that board, an Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Action Plan was implemented and adopted back in 2022. One of the first steps in that process was to hire a Chief Diversity Officer, which the town did in May of last year, Miriam Moore. I've had the opportunity to work with Miriam. In fact, our Chief Diversity Officer has held several training seminars for town board members as well as our senior staff on areas such as implicit bias, LGBTQ plus issues, and items of that sort in order to address these issues and make town senior staff aware of the issues and how to address them. We all have implicit biases, whether we like that fact or not, and we need to be aware of it. I would be supportive of having Miriam Moore and working with her to bring her into the court system, to observe proceedings, to meet with the clerks, and develop training seminars for court staff on inclusion, diversity, and equity issues. I think that's an important first step, and that's a very doable step, and that's in accordance with the town's inclusion, diversity, and equity action plan items. And that's something we can easily achieve in my first year on the bench if I'm elected. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad this question was asked. I think I would first note that, the ideas of DEI and the idea board and the hiring of Miriam Moore was fantastic. If you have a moment to speak with her for 1 minute, you will be inspired. The idea of extending those trainings to courtroom staff and the town judge, well, that's not a new idea. That's already being done currently. That's a requirement of all town judges who serve, is that they have a required DEI training and diversity training that not only the town judge has to also do, but the clerk. So that's being done. We need to do better than what's currently being done. And I mentioned it earlier, if you want to advance the causes of diversity and inclusion and equity, I think the first step is to elect diverse candidates when they come before you who are qualified. That's the first step. The second step is, I recently spoke at a hate crime symposium conducted by RPD, the New York State Police, and Governor Hochul. And one of the things I said is that if you want to combat hate crimes and bias, you need representation at every level of the criminal justice system. You need it at the beat cop level, you need it at the DA's office, you need it at the town judge level and higher. And we have an opportunity to do that here. When people come to court who are people of color, they should not feel like an other. They should not feel that no one else looks like them in the room. And with my election, that won't happen. And when we talk about equity can mean a number of things to a number of people. One of the things that I think Rachel touched upon is the diversity in economics in our community. Making sure people who do not have the means to represent themselves get a fair shake in town court is a critical function of the town judge. If that means I need to have free legal service providers be in court waiting for these people when they come in, I will do that. That is the role of town judge to promote justice.
Thank you.
Say the word again.
Yes.
Outrage. I made it clear when there were incidents in Brighton that any offense to the Jewish community in this town offends the entire town, and it offends me. I take it very personally. Now, the fact that my wife is Jewish is not relevant to that. Every community in this town has to feel safe and valued. There's no exception. We need to have the police coordinate with the Federation so that they can be on the lookout for any kind of problems that arise. And the fact that our former chief, Mark Henderson, is now the security officer for the Federation gives us a unique partnership. The town board needs to speak out on this issue whenever anti-Semitism arises. And frankly, having come through our former president's period of time, he gave license to spew hatred to all types of people and all different ethnic groups. That has to stop. And hopefully we can heal from that over time. But we're now in a different environment, and we need to be ready to confront anti-Semitism, which I am seeing too much of, and all the other aspects of attack of other groups in our community as well. Thanks.
I had a feeling somebody was going to ask that question. And so I wrote down, so I wouldn't get it wrong, a quote by Martin Luther King Jr., which you probably have all heard at least the beginning. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. But it goes on. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. That's not a quote that's new to me, but it's one that I take to heart in the way that I combat injustice every day, whether it's anti-Semitism or racism or ableism or whatever the case may be. I think it is really important that we call it out and that we call people in together. As Jews, I think we sometimes have the tendency to kind of get insular within ourselves. And I think that we have to do the hard work of throwing open the doors, throwing open our arms and saying, come join us in this fight.
This is a deeply personal one. My family's lived in Brighton for 3 generations, as I said in my opening. My great-grandfather escaped the Holocaust and came to this community, like I'm sure so many of your descendants. He came to this community, to Rochester, to feel safe. This is a town, this is a community where you'll see people, you'll see families walking a shul on a Saturday morning, wearing yarmulkes and talit. And as a young Jewish man, looking forward to raising his Jewish family here in Brighton, I am very worried that feeling of safety is evaporating. And that feeling of safety is evaporating when we do not call out anti-Semitism when we see it, when our elected officials do not call out anti-Semitism when they see it. We, the Jewish community, cannot fight the spread of anti-Semitism alone. And by working with all faith communities in Brighton and in the broader community,